Chinese President Xi Jinping visits Monaco and holds talks with Prince Albert II. DRC President Felix Tshisekedi seeks to strengthen bilateral ties in visit to Uganda. And Mozambique records more deaths from devastating tropical storm amid concerns of an outbreak of diseases. Hello and welcome to Africa Live. As always, great to have you with us. I'm Richard Searle Unta, live in Nairobi. For those of you joining us across the continent and around the globe, we thank you for joining us. Let's take a look at other stories making headlines this hour. How regional navies have been sharpening their skills in combating maritime crime in the Gulf of Guinea. And why many villagers in the Republic of Congo are excited by newly acquired access to satellite TV programs. Chinese President Xi Jinping is now in Monaco after a state visit to Italy. He has met with Monaco's head of state, Prince Albert II, to discuss political, economic, and environmental issues. Trade and investment between the two countries have increased 11-fold in the past 20 years. Earlier, in an exclusive interview with CGTN, the prince said he believes China and Monaco can also cooperate in broader areas, including sports and environmental protection. Well, Chinese and Beninese doctors have partnered to help advance the country's medical capabilities. Tapping into the power of the internet, Chinese doctors were able to guide surgeons in Benin. The Telemedicine project looks to bring medical techniques to remote regions of the country. Well, thanks to the technology, a patient who for 15 years had a goiter condition and abnormal enlargement of the thyroid gland was able to finally receive treatment.
Of course, it's a huge honor for such a tiny country, the second smallest in the world, to receive, as the Monegasques here called, the most important leader, or at least the leader of the largest country in the world in terms of population. The Chinese president is coming here is seen also as a business opportunity. Monaco would like to position itself as the main, or one of the main financial hubs on the Mediterranean coast. They will probably sign some contracts and some bilateral agreements, mainly on trade, imports and exportations, and also about environmental protection. Monaco launched the idea of an environmental investment bank, and China this week announced that they will contribute $1 billion to this new ecological fund. So these are some of the announcements. Maybe some more will follow later this afternoon, and then tonight it's the end of the state visit, and then President Xi Jinping will head to France to start another state visit, his last leg of his European trip in France, where he will stay until Tuesday.
We apologize for that diversion in our regular scheduled programming. Moving on, earlier we talked to our correspondent Stefan de Vries in Monaco about what future cooperation between the two countries would look like. Let's take a look at that story.
Well, of course, it's a huge honor for such a tiny country, the second smallest in the world, to receive, as the Monegasques here called, the most important leader, or at least the leader of the largest country in the world in terms of population. The Chinese president is coming here is seen also as a business opportunity. Monaco would like to position itself as the main, or one of the main financial hubs on the Mediterranean coast. They will probably sign some contracts and some bilateral agreements, mainly on trade, imports and exportations, and also about environmental protection. Monaco launched the idea of an environmental investment bank, and China this week announced that they will contribute $1 billion to this new ecological fund. So these are some of the announcements. Maybe some more will follow later this afternoon, and then tonight it's the end of the state visit, and then President Xi Jinping will head to France to start another state visit, his last leg of his European trip in France, where he will stay until Tuesday.
Well, the DR Congo President Felix Tshisekedi has paid a courtesy call to his Ugandan counterpart, Yoweri Museveni. CGTN's Michael Baleka has that report. Let's take a look.
Uganda's Foreign Affairs Minister Sam Kutesa received the DR Congo President Felix Tshisekedi at the country's Entebbe International Airport. A statement released by Uganda's State House reads that the two presidents, Museveni and Tshisekedi, held talks on matters trade, security and bilateral issues. The visit also comes at a time of renewed international pressure over flaws in the recently concluded electoral process in the DR Congo. Washington has sanctioned 3 top electoral officials of allegations of corruption and embezzlement, which led to a delay in holding the presidential polls. The DR Congo is one of Uganda's major export trade partners. Uganda also hosts more than 300,000 DR Congo refugees running from a wave of violence from the eastern part of the country. An unpredictable political environment and disease outbreaks such as Ebola virus continue to aggravate the situation. However, regional analysts largely view the meeting between President Yoweri Museveni and Felix Tshisekedi as an attempt to bring an end to the conflict in the region. Michael Baleke, CGTN, Kampala, Uganda.
Mozambique's land and environmental minister says the number of lives that were lost in the Cyclone Idai has increased to 446. The tropical storm lashed the Mozambican port city of Beira last week with winds of up to 170 kilometers per hour. It then moved to Zimbabwe and Malawi, putting the lives of millions at risk. The tempest has killed scores of people in Zimbabwe as well. The Office of the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs reports the death toll in Zimbabwe at 154. The United Nations humanitarian arm says it will launch a financial appeal to support rescue operations in the country. Meanwhile, an outbreak of disease is threatening to compound the already dire conditions facing millions of Cyclone Idai survivors.
We also have a number of people that were affected, which is 531,000. Obviously, these are preliminary numbers. As soon as we do our survey of the ground, we'll be able to give you updates on this. Just to say that the people that are safe in our camps are almost 110,000 people already in the camps. We'll have cholera for sure. I was explaining in Portuguese that we'll have cholera, we'll have malaria. It's unavoidable in this situation. So the government is opening a cholera treatment center already.
Private individuals have heeded the call from government to get involved and do the most that they can do.
We have in the port at the moment the Indian Navy with a hospital ship, and they have put a mobile team here to help the people that come there from Buzi.
People arrived in the port with only the clothes on their backs, telling harrowing stories of adults and children being swept away in front of them.
I've never seen something like that. Back in 2000, when there was a flood, the water levels reached under my armpits. But this time, it was just so high. There was lots and lots of current. It was just taking people away. Many people died. My family is okay. But there are so many people who lost children because the current was so strong.
I escaped by climbing onto a government building, and the place was so packed we could not lie down. So we had to sit all the time. When it was raining, we were just standing there.
While the aid agencies were working with helicopters with quick response times, their capacity was very limited.
We managed to get a bit more than 2,000 people from Buzi to here, out of the worst affected areas, with small fishing boats, because unfortunately where they are, the bigger boats that we have here in the port, they cannot reach there.
With the floodwater subsiding, the immediate danger from drowning is also reducing. The challenge is getting to people who have lost everything. Most of the fishing boats that had been chartered are now in. There's one left out on the coastline, but there's a change of strategy. We're now taking aid out to where those people are because the water has receded enough. I'm Angelo Coppola for CGTN in Beira, Mozambique.
And to Kenya now, and at least 3 people have died in the Rift Valley region in recent days as a result of an ongoing drought. Close to 1 million people are in danger of starvation. CGTN's Robert Nagila visited Baringo County, one of the worst hit areas, and filed this report.
Tiati, Baringo County, 186 miles from Nairobi. It's one of those areas ravaged by a drought that has claimed lives and is turning into a growing humanitarian crisis. A few kilometers from the main market in Guinea, we come across this family of 12, sheltered under a tree from the scorching sun. All they've had to eat in the last few weeks are these wild berries.
The major problem they're facing is starvation.
It's been months since the last rainfall. The rivers have dried up, and most of the menfolk have driven their animals hundreds of miles away in search of green pastures. Inside a dilapidated structure, their grandmother lies on a makeshift bed. She hasn't had a decent meal in weeks and is bedridden now, too weak to walk.
It's because of hunger. Her teeth are too weak, so we crush the wild berries for her to eat.
As a Kenyan, it's difficult not to be touched by what we've experienced here today. So what we've decided together with the crew is that the little water that we carried along with us, we're going to leave it behind. It's not much, but at least it's something. As we distribute the water, mothers ensure their little ones have had some before their turn. A few kilometers away, we find this old man. Frail and too weak to stand, he can hardly speak. We give him the last of our water and promise to return. The government says food worth $200,000 has been distributed to affected areas. But here, in parts of Tiati, there is little evidence of that. Wapat Nagila, CGTN, Tiati, Baringo.
You are watching Africa Live on CGTN. We have a lot more news coming your way after the break. Let's take a look at the headlines. How regional navies have been sharpening their skills in combating maritime crime in the Gulf of Guinea. And why many villagers in the Republic of Congo are excited by newly acquired access to satellite TV programs.
How will your world change today? What happens here? What happens there? Or what you make happen for yourself? If it matters to you, it matters to us too. Your stories are the stories that need to be told. Africa Live. Find your voice. Africa Live. Find your voice.
Welcome back. The United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres has expressed concerns over reports that more than 130 people have been killed in an attack on a central Mali village. The victims were villagers of Ogosagu, a nomadic Fulani tribe. Local officials say survivors accuse the ethnic Dogon militia of carrying out the brutal attack at dawn on Saturday. The UN mission in Mali provided air support to deter further attacks and assisted with the evacuation of the injured. The UN chief has demanded the Mali government to investigate the case. Local attacks are often fueled by disputes over land and water access, but the area is also troubled by jihadist influence. The Nigerian Navy and their counterparts in the Gulf of Guinea have held an annual drill to further sharpen their skills in fighting maritime crimes in a region notorious for sea piracy, kidnapping, and hijacking. 31 countries took part in the exercise with several warships deployed. CGTN's Deji Badmus has more on that story.
Arrest of pirates at sea. But this is not the real thing. It's a simulation involving the navies of the countries making up the Gulf of Guinea and their allies. It's part of a drill to prepare them for a real-life situation, which is quite common on this water. 11 warships are taking part in this exercise, 8 of them from the Nigerian Navy, and the remaining 3 from the navies of Portugal, Morocco, and the United States of America.
Alpha Zulu! Alpha Zulu!
The exercise, which has been on since 2010, was initiated by the United States of America Africa Command as part of measures to foster togetherness among African navies. This year's sea exercise held in the Gulf of Guinea. In all, 31 countries took part in the drills.
The cooperation has been very excellent. We have played with the Portuguese ship, which we did on the second day of the exercise. You all witnessed the boarding. We played the role of a rogue ship, and the Portuguese boarded the ship, and everything went on well. Today we played the role of a real man of war, rescuing a hijacked ship, and it went on well. That was with the Moroccan ship.
If you look at the criminal activities within our waters, it borders on piracy, hostage taking, illegal e-bunkering, kidnapping, you know. So the new thing we added this time around is what we call search and rescue. You know, this is something that has not really happened within our water because it has been very, very safe, but we envisage that sometime, someday, we may be required to search for a ditched aircraft or even a sunken ship.
The water stretching the entire Gulf of Guinea is considered among the world's most dangerous for seafarers. Maritime watchdog, the International Maritime Bureau, says attacks in the waters of the Gulf of Guinea more than doubled in 2018. Accounting for all 6 hijackings worldwide, 13 of the 18 ships fired upon, 130 of the 141 hostages taken globally, and 78 of 83 seafarers kidnapped for ransom. The navies of the region and their allies are hoping to reverse the trend with these drills.
We are bringing out the new tactics being used by the criminals, and we are also putting them into practice as we are conducting this exercise. So it has really helped us to secure our sea lines of communication. We have developed the capacity to secure our sea lines of communication. The route now is freer than before for trade than ever before.
One of the challenges militating against Nigeria's fight against maritime crime is a lack of diligent prosecution. To address the issue, officials of some of the agencies in charge of prosecution have been embedded with the Navy to take part in the drills and see things for themselves.
All these agencies, starting from Ministry of Justice, Immigration, Custom, NDLA, Nigerian Police, they are all here. So with this group of agencies around us, we are now assured that once we make arrests, the procedure of the investigation and prosecution and final conviction, you know, will be perfect.
Beyond being a drill, this was also some kind of show of force by the navies of the Gulf of Guinea, sending a clear message to pirates in the region. It now remains to be seen how the naval personnel apply what they have learnt here in real-life situations. Deji Badmos, CGTN, Lagos, Nigeria.
Chinese and Beninese doctors have partnered to help advance the country's medical capabilities. Tapping into the power of the internet, Chinese doctors were able to guide surgeons in Benin. The Telemedicine project looks to bring medical techniques to remote regions of the country. Thanks to the technology, a patient who for 15 years had a goiter condition, an abnormal enlargement of the thyroid gland, was able to finally receive treatment.
Telemedicine played a very important role in this surgery because before the procedure, many tests had already been done, but they were not complete. So we couldn't imagine the difficulties we were going to encounter. As a result, during this intervention, as soon as we encountered difficulties, we discussed with the Chinese experts. Everything went on well in the end, even the process was difficult. This surgery was a great success, thanks to the collaboration of the Chinese doctors. This is why we consider this intervention a very important event.
I think that today's surgery is a good example. It is also a test. I hope that today's surgery will pave the way for cooperation between our two countries in the field of health.
What a remarkable story there. But moving on now to the Congo, many locals now have access to digital TV. This is after the implementation of the Access to Satellite TV for 10,000 African Villages project. Rogers, who lives in the village of Kintele in Brazzaville, is a beneficiary of the program and says his life has undergone tremendous changes as a result of the initiative.
Roger is a person living with a disability. Due to poverty, his family has never had access to a television set. However, a new project in their village has accorded them the privilege of watching broadcast programs for the first time. Access to satellite TV for 10,000 African villages was implemented recently in Kintele, in the Republic of Congo. This is part of a wider project which aims to connect satellite digital TV signals to 10,000 villages in more than 30 countries in Africa. The once dull rural life has come alive with new dreams of seeing the outside world.
Je suis vraiment satisfait parce que je vois.
I'm very satisfied because I can see the world through TV. Every moment there is news on, and there are other programs too. Because I can't walk, I can only rely on TV to understand what happens outside. This makes my life colorful and also has greatly eased the pain in my life.
Donc, ça me réjouit.
The project is a Sino-African Cooperation initiative. It was proposed during the Johannesburg summit of the China-African Cooperation Forum in 2015. As one of the beneficiary countries of the project, 100 villages in Congo-Brazzaville were selected.
Pour le gouvernement chinois, the Chinese government is helping 100 villages in Congo to connect to satellite TV signals and equip them with digital TV sets. It also helps to train and educate people in rural areas.
Et pour nous, un geste hautement appréciable.
The project also acts as a platform to educate the local community. Congolese citizens get a chance to acquire more skills, which in turn can reduce poverty and improve their quality of life. Astatal, CGTN.
You're watching Africa Live on CGTN. We've got your sports news coming up after the break. Here's a look at that headline. Curtains come down on the 2019 Africa Cup of Nations qualifiers.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
Welcome back. Let's talk a bit of football. Tanzania is the latest nation to qualify for the Africa Cup of Nations. They beat already qualified Uganda by 3-0 in Dar es Salaam. Earlier, Zimbabwe qualified after beating Congo-Brazzaville by 2-0, while DR Congo also clinched the final berth after edging out Libya by a solitary goal. We shall have full coverage of the qualifiers in our subsequent bulletins. All right, to cycling news now, where Team 7C CBZ Willier, consisting of Luis Meja and Columbus and Johnny Cataneo of Italy, have won the 6th and penultimate stages of the Cape Epic in South Africa. Now, the route was circular, one which started and finished in the scenic Stellenbosch backdrop. But from there, it took on 89 kilometers of trails and a total of 2,650 meters of climbing. Annika Langvad and Annika van der Bregen of Songo Specialized Top continued to dominate the women's edition of the race. And we're not done with football just yet. Germany will play Netherlands in their first Euro 2020 qualifier in just a short while from now. Germany met the Dutch twice in last year's group stage of the inaugural UEFA Nations League, and neither went well, as the Dutch won in Amsterdam 3-0 before conceding 2 late goals to draw 2-2. Coach Joachim Low is currently in the process of rebuilding his team with experienced trios of Matt Hummels and Jerome Boateng and Thomas Muller, all who were left out of the latest squad.
This is the beginning of qualifying for Euro 2020. We want to start our first match with success and also to finish the qualifiers successfully. Therefore, for us, the result is the most important thing. We are also in the process of developing new players, and that's also an important element that we experienced in the match against Serbia.
Well, the Netherlands will be the favorites against Germany in Amsterdam. The Netherlands failed to qualify for the 2016 European Championship in last year's FIFA World Cup in Russia, but the team has improved since the arrival of coach Ronald Koeman and have picked up notable wins over Germany, France, and Portugal.
We know the qualities of the players, and maybe they are changing different things in the team, and maybe they need some more time, but it's a special game. It's a special game always between Holland and Germany, and we were lucky in the last one in the draw, the 2-2, and okay, we need to be at our best to beat Germany.
Well, a bit of news from the world of tennis. Roger Federer came from a set down to beat Moldovan Radu Albert 4-6, 7-5, and 6-3 at the ongoing Miami Open after dropping the first set. Federer broke Albert while leading 6-5 in the second with the backhand volley winner. Albert could not convert a break point in the deciding set, tied at 3-3. The Swiss took command from there to wrap up a match that lasted 2 hours in 10 minutes. Federer, the 3-time Miami champion, finished with 38 winners, but had to overcome 41 unforced errors to defeat Albert, who earned an ovation from the crowd for his efforts. Elsewhere, in the women's competition, Canadian Bianca Andreescu continued her rise with a 6-4, 4-6, and 6-1 victory over former world #1 Angelique Kerber in the third round of the Miami Open. It was the second win over Kerber in less than a week for the 18-year-old Andreescu, who also beat the German in the finals of the BNP Paribas Open. Andreescu has now reached the 4th round after the marathon match that ended early Sunday. Well, that's it for this edition of Africa Live. Remember, you can send us your feedback to the contacts on the screen and follow us on digital media platforms. For the team, I'm Richard Searle-Nta saying thank you so much for watching, and we will be right back here same time tomorrow. Till then, take care.